Hello and welcome to Warhammer Wednesday. In this video I will be showcasing my entire Space Marine Primaris army. By the time you're watching this video I would have painted quite a few more of these models. They are the new Space Marines from Games Workshop. The backstory to them is that basically a tech priest by the name of Belisarius Call has been secretly working on an improved version of Space Marines for the past 10,000 years in secret. The Avenging Sun, or Rebute Gilliman, has returned. They've taken him out of stasis and he's now ordered Belisarius Call to make use of these Primaris Space Marines, specifically because of the rift in the warp and the increase in warp storms across systems brought about from the fall of the Cadian Gate and the fall of Cadia. So what are Primaris Space Marines? Well, they are taller, bigger, beefier sort of Space Marines. They do look like true scale Space Marines. They look like Space Marines as if they were the size and the proportions you'd expect them to be, compared to sort of humans. I mean, human could probably be about that tall, or a little bit taller, maybe that tall. These are the closest, in my opinion, that we've got to realising Space Marines as quite a big, imposing, genetically modified sort of superhuman. Where they fit in the fluff at the moment is they're just an improved version of the more normal mini Marines or the standard Space Marines. I think in total in the fluff there are about 100,000 of these guys, and they've all been separated and dispatched to bolster other Space Marine chapters. Now, if you know anything about the Horus Heresy, you'll probably understand that Legions specifically had about 100,000 Space Marines, with I think the Ultramarines had the largest Legion, which is about 250,000 or 250,000 Space Marines. I think the Word Bearers had about 100,000. The smallest was Thousand Suns. They suffered with mutations and, they whittled down to 1,000 at one point, hence Thousand Suns. But they were rumoured to be between 10,000 and 85,000. They were pretty much the smallest Legion. So there's 100,000. So they've pretty much pulled out a Legion from somewhere of these Primaris Space Marines. And they've all been siphoned off and used to reinforce lots of different chapters across the galaxy. And some of them from different chapters as well. So you've got some Space Wolves with Blood Angels and with Dark Angels, and they've got a strong brotherhood, and I don't think they let any diversity get in their way when they're added to these chapters, which is great. They sort of put their rivalry aside. In game terms, you're looking at usually more attacks and more wounds, although quite a few units have been given more wounds and things like that. So they come with the Mark 10 power armor, which is sort of based on the Mark 4 Maximus armor. You can see it here. It certainly has a few design cues and things. All of the painted models are all very works in progress. There's only one model in all of those that's almost close to being complete. But having said that, they share similar design cues. I mean, if you look at the Space Marines in the Betrayal at Calth box set, they're similar to that. Similar sort of helmets and power packs and joints and all the rest of it. How they differ compared to other Space Marines is that they pretty much have 3 extra organs to sort of help them out, called the Primaris organs. You've got the sinew coils, the Magnificat, and the Belisarian furnace. Basically, the sinew coils, Space Marine sinews are reinforced with durametallic coil cables. It gives the body another layer of interior defence. The Magnificat is thumb-sized lobe inserted into the brain's core. It secretes hormones, specifically growth hormones, and it's half of a dual valve immortis gland called the Godmaker, and the Emperor created this for his Primarchs. So these are, as close as to Primarchs as you possibly can get. And then finally the Belisarian furnace. It connects both hearts, so it stimulates combat stims and aids in the rapid regrowing of tissue, bone and muscle, but it takes quite a while to build up, so that connects both the hearts. So they're the 3 sort of organs that you get in. But like I say, in game terms, you're looking at more attacks and more wounds, primarily. If you want to compare a standard captain with a Primaris captain, I have one here, you're looking at the same movement, the same weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength and toughness, but you're looking at 1 extra wound with 6 wounds, 1 extra attack at 5 attacks, and the rest is pretty much the same. They don't have access to the similar kind of weapons and things in the standard sort of Space Marine army. All they've pretty much got access to is a power sword and a Stalker Bot Rifle. But you can give them the auto bolt rifle. A captain in Gravis armour, however, ups his toughness to 5, and that's a theme with all of the models in Gravis armour. I've got some aggressors here. They get toughness 5, the captain gets 6 wounds, similar to his other brethren, and 5 attacks as usual. It's important to note that these sort of Gravis armour, the only sort of benefit really is their lower movement speed at a cost of an extra toughness. So just bear that in mind. It's not like they're getting 2+ saves. Because you could get normal Space Marines with Artificer armour with the 2+ saves. So you're looking at all these models here, and the best save here is 3+. So you're looking at an army that has a save of 3+ everywhere. From the chaplains to the Gravis armour captains, to the intercessors, the reavers even, the dreadnought and the repulsor, all 3+ across the board. So that's a good sort of statistic to have. The models are quite pricey in terms of points. You're normally looking at double the points. Power wise, you're looking at the same kind of points. For a tactical squad that's 5 Space Marines compared to an intercessor squad, exactly the same, 5 points. Something like a Primaris Lieutenant compared to a normal one is power level 5 as opposed to 4, and Primaris Chaplain again is a 6 compared to a 5. Then we can compare like the Repulsor tank there, which is power level 16, compared to a Land Raider, which is power 19. Even though the Repulsor has way more weapons, it does have a worse save, but it does have the same number of wounds, same strength, same toughness, and the rest of it. So now what I'll do, okay, so first thing I'll do is talk about all the models. I do very much like this range. I think it's the Space Marines that I've always hoped Space Marines would be in terms of the size and the poses, and Space Marines, the Mini Marines, they've always been a little bit stunted. They've always lacked a bit of aggressiveness to them, a bit of intimidation. It might have been their poses, it might have been the torsos, lack of them aiming down weapons. You only really get a sense of their sort of intimidation and things in a lot of their vehicles and the dreadnoughts and special characters, with some exceptions such as like the Stern Guard and Terminators. I'm really happy with all of these models, model-wise. There are a few that are a bit funky to look at, such as the Aggressors and the Inceptors. The main bulk of the unit, such as the Intercessors and the Reavers and all of these monopose miniatures, which are expensive. I'll talk about the price in a moment. I'm really happy with, and I'm really happy with the Redemptor Dreadnought, and I was very sceptical about that if you've watched any of my previous videos. Likewise, the Repulsor. I wasn't a huge fan, but it has grown on me, and I do think it's a great bit of kit, you know, modelling wise. So price point. They are expensive. Unfortunately, for 10 Space Marines here, it's £35. For these special characters here, £22.50 each. The Dreadnought is £40. Well, I think that's worth it. I think the value is there for that. And the Repulsor, unfortunately, is £50. I think £30 for the Aggressors and the Inceptors. 25 would have been nicer, much like £30 for the standard 10-man squads would have been nicer too. I do think they are on the pricey side of the hobby, but I wouldn't go as far as to say they're completely better than Space Marines. I wouldn't say that they're a complete replacement. I wouldn't rush out and burn or melt all of your Space Marine chapter or force and then replace them all with these. It just won't work. I can tell you that right now. For one, they don't have any of the tactical flexibility or deployment methods available to standard Space Marines. That might change in the future, might change in a couple of years or a few years if and when they do change codexes and things, but they don't have any of that tactical flexibility or weapon options. I'll give you a few examples. So you've got the Intercessor squads. They're armed with these bolt rifles. They're a new weapon for the 41st millennium. You've got to understand that these Primaris Space Marines, we're now in the 41st millennium, 100 years after they've been created. So for 100 years, they've been fighting battles on different planets, and this is where we are now. So that's why we're only just getting to see sort of apothecaries, chaplains, dreadnoughts even. Where they're set, it's not like, right, they've got the new Marines out and we're starting off on a big crusade. No, they've already had their crusade for 100 years. That's why there's not a huge lore and backstory to draw upon, which there is for the standard Space Marines and Space Marine heroes, things like that. Although at the moment I would really love to see Games Workshop bring out single named characters, such as Felix in his Gravis armour, such as specific Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and even just your one-off characters, maybe an Inceptor special character, or a specialist aggressor. I think there's a lot of scope there with those sort of special unique characters. I think they should do that, and I'd very much encourage that. But moving back onto the weapon, they're armed with these bolt rifles, new weapon. The Stalker Bot Rifles are 36-inch range, so you get the same range as a heavy bolter. They've got a good armour penetration, but that's it for the intercessors. You've got 3 different types. You've got the bolt rifle, the Stalker Bot Rifle, and the Autobot Rifle. That's it. You don't get your melter guns or plasma guns or flamers. Where are the flamers? Where have they gone? This is a thing. They're severely lacking. So if you're going to use Primaris Space Marines as your main force, you're going to have to be sacrificing things. 1, you're sacrificing your money because they're going to cost a lot. 2, you're sacrificing your points because they're nearly always more points or more power levels more. So you're going to be taking less of them, both in points and power cost. And thirdly, they're not going to be as versatile. They're going to be very sort of niche, very specialist in their job and their role to do. They're going to be survivable because a 3+ is still a good save. They've got the 2 wounds each, and in some cases, like McNuggets here, he's got 6 wounds, and that Redemptor Dreadnought over there has a whopping 13 wounds. Monstrous, truly monstrous. I don't understand why he's only got the same strength and toughness as a normal Contemptor, which is a fair bit smaller than him, but still, that's for another day. Likewise, we move over to the Hellblaster squad. Now, these guys are armed with 3 different types of plasma incinerators, another new weapon for the range. They can be armed with the heavy plasma incinerators, which again is 36 inches. 36 inches and 24 inches seem to be a big theme among this army. So you've got the assault, the heavy, and the standard plasma incinerators. So 3 different types of the same weapon. So none of your special weapons, no missile launchers in your intercessor squads, or anything like that. And then you look at the other 2 sort of fire support, fast attack type units, which is the Inceptors, which can be armed with these assault bolters, which are sort of like heavy bolters, but at less range. And also the plasma exterminators, which are again a little bit like plasma incinerators, but shorter range with a random number of shots. And likewise, you've got the Aggressors, which although they do have power fists, and they do have, I always thought that these were missile launchers. They're not. They would be cool if they were, but they're just the frag launchers. The Auto Bolt Storm Gauntlets, you got 6 shots there, but again they're only strength 4 and damage 1. These guys, although they've got a good toughness of 5, they've only got 2 wounds, same as all the other intercessors, and they've still got that 3+ save, no invulnerable save or anything like that. So yeah, they've got the power fist, but whether they're going to last long in close combat or through weight of fire, if you can get past that toughness 5, who knows. And then you've got the special characters or the HQ choices. I think they're quite solid HQ choices. They all bring different things to the table. Even these new lieutenants and ancients bring things to the table. Buff your squads. Everything from re-rolling hits to re-rolling wounds to reviving models to psychic powers. You name it. There's a little bit there that will help you buff a little force. And then finally, the elephant in the room is the repulsor tank. I wasn't that keen on the model, but it has grown on me. You can equip it with an absolute multitude of weapons. So many weapons that you probably will forget to fire 1 or 2 of them or something like that. I do question like the model-wise, design-wise, in terms of, I have to bring it up, I apologise, the door, the fact that the doors are smaller than on a Rhino or on a Land Raider, but yet the vehicle can only carry Primaris Marines. I think that's one of the big key issues in this release. It certainly, in my opinion, took a lot of flack, was the controversial decision to create a brand new Space Marine transport that was very limited in its troop carrying capacity. It can only carry Primaris Space Marines and Aggressors. If and when they're going to release the Stormlord flyer If they are going to bring out that flyer, who knows? Because it's a big flyer. It makes a Thunderhawk look like a toy. I think it's bigger than a Thunderhawk. It can carry 40 Primaris Space Marines as opposed to the 30 standard Space Marines of a Thunderhawk, but it's armed with pretty decent weapons, and it's almost like a Saestus and Corvus Blackstein, that it's got 2 troop bays under it, so it can carry 20 in each, and carry Aggressors as well. But whether they if and when they're going to release that, at the moment you're stuck with the only transport, which is the Repulsor. Now, if I run a game club or if I was playing with friendlies, I'd say, you know what, yeah, if it can carry Terminators, it can carry Primaris Space Marines. That's the way I'd run it. And if my opponent wanted to put his Primaris Space Marines in a Land Raider, I'd say go for it. In a Storm Raven, go for it. I don't really see much of an issue. If these things can carry Centurions, which are huge, you know, almost the size of a Dreadnought almost, then that's a no-brainer for me. So although I think it's an okay looking model, yeah, it was let down with that limitation for the rules, and I would have liked to have seen it have a 2+ save, but maybe that is the theme for this whole Primaris force, is just 3+ everywhere. And that's all I really wanted to say about my Primaris Space Marine force. The only additions I'd probably get is maybe only a small combat squad of Intercessors, maybe another Repulsor, maybe another Dreadnought, and maybe another box of Aggressors, but that's probably a long way off. It's certainly not going to be in the immediate future. Anyway, what are your thoughts and opinions on this whole Primaris Space Marine range? Do you think Games Workshop dropped the ball in terms of models, some being, you know, with the restrictions in the monopose models, with the pricing, with some of the rules? What are your opinions about the whole range? Are there any models that you really like out of the whole range? Please do put all your opinions and thoughts down below. I take the time to read all of them and reply when I can. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.